Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor, the brownie of the universe, as he travels the vortex and arrive at episode number 299. There's nothing more boring than a touch of the sniffles with ideas above its station. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm well.
I'm well.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
You guys have a good week? Anything fun?
I'm thinking. Give me a minute.
Thinking back all the things. I did a bunch of things this weekend.
You were off this week, weren't you? Or was that last week?
That was last week.
That was last week.
But I did a bunch of stuff this weekend.
What'd you do this weekend?
A bunch of stuff.
You start.
We went and saw The Toxic Avenger, the musical. Helen Hawker Theater here in town, our local community, one of our local community theaters, put it on the 5-person show. They're each playing probably about 16 characters apiece.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And it was fantastic. It was a very high-paced, hilarious, funny, energetic show. My sister was in it. She played like 5 different characters. One character who's on stage at the same, or 2 characters that are on the same stage at the same time. You just have to see it to understand it, but it works. Watched Luke Cage. I'm in episode 6 now of Luke Cage, so I'm about halfway done with that.
I watched the first episode.
Really, really good. And the other thing we did, we started our countdown to Halloween with, we went and saw Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters film today.
How was the new one?
It's enjoyable. It's a lot of fun. You go into it expecting the first Ghostbusters movies, and it's not. It is a complete reimagining of the story. That being said, as much as I hold the other ones dear to my heart, this one was a lot of fun. The acting in it was fabulous. It was very funny. And from about 2/3 of the way into it to the end, it almost feels more like the cartoon series.
I watched The Revenant.
Worst camping trip ever.
That was with Leo and
Yeah,
the bear?
the one where
Leo and the bear.
Leo and the bear. The bear's not in it very much.
Well, I certainly don't want to see it anymore.
Boy, they sure marketed the hell out of that bear, didn't they?
It was all right. Gorgeously shot. Gorgeous cinematography. Not as many long shots as Birdman, because it's the same director. But I think the ambition for the long shots were bigger. It's just kind of a boring story, is the problem. Very well acted, and the bronze was interesting.
It's the bronze.
It's Melissa Rauch from Big Bang Theory as this bronze medal gymnast that comes back and kind of tries to skate along, and then her teacher dies, and she decides she gets tricked into teaching another girl how to go to the trials. It's not as funny as I thought it would be. It looked like it would be pretty funny. It's very crass.
Oh, it's a comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy. And then I got to Burke and Hare before it dropped off Netflix on the first.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And?
It was really enjoyable.
We put up our Halloween decorations yesterday, so all that's up and ready to go.
Did you do anything?
I took Katrina to the zoo on Saturday. Had some papa-granddaughter time. I did something fun. Oh, we're already a disc and a half in on season 3 of Next Gen. Mel cannot stop watching, which is good. She's very happy with that. I made Patrick go 2 episodes deep into Stranger Things this week because we watched episode 5. And for those of you that have seen it, episode 5 ends in kind of a what the. That's and Patrick's like, okay. I stopped him and I said, okay, so here's the deal. I said, you can either boot up episode 6 now, or I'm going to go home and finish this series and then just act surprised when I'm with you next week. Because I can't end on that one. So we watched one more, and then it was like, okay, I'm an okay holding off there for another week. I'm still dying to watch the rest of it, but I can hold my tongue until then. Oh man.
Should we move on to news then? Our first bit of news.
No, let's not.
No?
You asked. I just decided to give you an answer.
Our first bit of news comes from Andy and the folks over at Candy Jar Books about the next line of 2017 books. The first title is officially The Night of the Intelligence, written by Andy Frankham-Allen. Quote him, "It's the one everything has been building towards for the last 2 years." So unfortunately we have to wait till 2017 for that. If you aren't going to be able to make it to New York Comic Con, you can tweet Amazon with the hashtag AskDoctorWho, and they'll try their best to get as many questions answered for the panel with Peter Capaldi, Pearl Mackie, and Stephen Moffat at Madison Square Gardens on October 7th. So next weekend.
Can we ask a favor from all of you who are now rushing to write your question down and send it in? Can we not ask what's your favorite episode, what's your favorite monster, what's your favorite... There's enough people going to ask those questions. Don't write in with those. Save the people running the con some time, because they're going to weed all that out anyway.
That's true.
Come up with something good.
And if you're going to New York Comic Con, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need some more roving reporters. Correspondents. Roving correspondents.
Correspondents.
Because it looks better on a business card to say correspondent than reporter. People actually talk to you when you're a correspondent. Reporters, they like, no.
And our last bit of news. Digital Spy recently held a poll of the best TV character of the 21st century. And David Tennant's The 10th Doctor won.
Back up. Say this one more time.
So, David Tennant's 10th Doctor has been voted the best TV character of the 21st century in a poll by Digital Spy.
Stands to reason.
Picked 70 fictional characters for the fans to vote on. David Tennant's The 10th Doctor took home the prize of best character with a whopping 35,000 votes out of 241,000 total.
Who was second?
Misha Collins' Castiel from Supernatural with 32,000 votes. And third is Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes with 13,000 votes.
Fandom is strong.
Fandom is strong.
Now, why is it specifically David Tennant's Doctor, though? This is, I think,
question.
where maybe I have a problem with this poll. Because
is his Doctor the best Doctor of the 21st century?
Well, it's a fictional character. The Doctor. That kind of sums it up. I don't think we need to break it down, do we?
Yes, I think you do. And I think the reason being is because every actor brings a different personality and stamp to the character of the Doctor.
Okay.
I wouldn't have voted for him, but you know.
No, I certainly wouldn't.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If he was the only choice, yeah, I'd have voted for him.
Let's put it this way, though. It doesn't surprise me that it was Tennant. It doesn't surprise me one bit. Really, I mean, if you look at the Doctor in the new series since they've come back, he has been the fan favorite, one and done. No matter what you think of his performance, he has been fan favorite.
I don't have any problems with his performance. I love David Tennant.
His performance is fine.
Yeah. I'm just playing devil's advocate, asking, did we really need to identify which
I'm
Doctor?
on the record as saying Capaldi is my favorite of the new series Doctors. 100%. I think Keith would say Matt Smith.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's my Doctor.
I don't think he'd say Matt Smith at all.
Buffy was number 6.
What was the category again?
This is just favorite character.
Just favorite fictional television.
Favorite TV character of the 21st century.
Okay. So it's not most influential or...
No, favorite.
It's just favorite.
Yeah, it's favorite.
Okay, then yeah, that's fine. I retract my grievance. I have no problem. I thought I read a lot more into that.
I think you did read a lot more into that than there was, yeah.
Yay, Doctor Who.
Yay, Doctor Who.
Hey, Doctor Who can take something in anything. I'm always happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So no feedback this week.
No, but you can send us feedback to feedback@travelingthevortex.com or go to travelingthevortex.com and fill out the Send Us Feedback tab, or you can reach out to us on Facebook @TravelVortex. That's Twitter @TravelVortex. Facebook is Traveling the Vortex. And of course, take part in the Goodreads Book Club, which the October book of the month is Prisoner of the Daleks by Trevor Baxendale.
Ooh. I think
won
I
the
voted for that
poll.
one.
So
I'm looking forward to that. That's a David Tennant.
That is.
That's a 10th Doctor, by the way.
The thread is up, so if you've already read it, weigh in, and if not, weigh in as you read the book.
I'm looking forward to...
Let's move on to reviews.
Where do we want to start? 100?
How did we do it last week? We did the audio first. Let's remain that way. Let's do the audio first.
All right.
Did we go chronological? We did, didn't we?
We did.
Yes.
We did.
100 BC. The Doctor and Evelyn arrive in Rome in 101 BC, approximately October. They meet a young lady of 19, Aurelia. She mentions her husband, Julius Caesar. Evelyn is excited, but her excitement soon turns to confusion. Surely you can't heal a wound in time with just a bit of sticking plaster?
Everybody knows what sticking plaster is, right? For us American listeners.
I'm assuming it's a Band-Aid.
It is a Band-Aid. Or bandage.
Bandage.
Adhesive bandage.
I suppose we should back up a step
So,
and let everybody
100
know.
is a selection of 4 short, half-hour-long stories.
It's an anthology piece that they did for the 100th episode or 100th release of Big Finish mainline Doctor Who audios.
So we have synopses for all
Which
four
I think
stories.
is clever that
It is
they
really neat.
and then they called the first story 100 BC. So
This was an enjoyable story. It was a bit different.
I liked this one as well because it was different. Because it was I like the approach. I like that we've done 100 episodes. I don't think of any Doctor. The Doctor and Evelyn is the right one to do this with, especially since they did this kind of with Doctor Who and the Pirates. They've always kind of tried to think outside the box and do something a little bit different. With not always, but every once in a while they do that, and it seems to work with the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn very well. It seems very organic. That being said, I do think that this is kind of a farce. I think that they play it as a farce, and it's a little hard to really kind of fit it into any sort of canon that you want to consider the Big Finish line. And I think the reason being is because I think Evelyn is a little out of character here. In fact, I think her determination to try to change the timeline, to me, seems a little out of character for Evelyn. And so I didn't quite like where they were going with the character with that. On the other hand, her actions work for what this story is and makes it enjoyable and fun. It's a fun story. We attribute fun romps. This is the definition of a fun romp to me.
What I really liked was the fact that it didn't actually change anything, that he went with the wrong direction in time. That part, I was kind of on the fence on it until that part, and then I was like, oh, all right, that's clever.
Yeah.
Because you don't think...
Clever fun.
I didn't think of that in the fact that BC counted down.
Backwards, right.
So...
Although, one of the issues I had, and I have to look at this because it's a farce and because of the type of story it is, I think the Doctor should have been given more credit as a writer. The Doctor's going to know that. That's going to be something inherent that the Doctor should know about when he's putting the TARDIS in what's the fast return.
Yeah.
I am going to say this. I did not like it. I liked the concept. I liked the rest of the stories. I liked the whole... Yeah. I wanted to be excited about this one, and it kicked everything off, and we're running around and doing the Roman thing and the aphrodisiac, and there were some funny moments with Evelyn completely ruining the Doctor's dinner and with her dinner conversation, etc., etc. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the fact that nothing happened. I felt betrayed, actually, by that point, that we get down to the end of it, and not only did nothing happen, but your involvement wasn't necessary. It just kind of felt like the final pull of the thread on the sweater, and the whole thing went poof. And it was like, then why all the running about? Why did we bother? Why? And I agree with you. I think Evelyn sounded particularly out of place here. If you're going to raise the question of, and that's kind of the big thrust of the story, is would the world be a better place if it had been Julius Caesar in charge, if it had been not a patriarchal society? Is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And things had run differently. Cool. Let's explore that idea then. Go the other direction. Now, obviously, within the format, because it's a half-hour story as part of this anthology.
I think that's why I can accept
it. You can't.
I think that's why I can accept it. Had this been a full-length audio, I would have all of the same problems you have with it.
I would have too.
This being what it is, as an anthology piece in a special event story for the 100th episode, I was able to wipe all of that aside and say, you know what, for this 30 minutes, I'm okay with this.
See, and I wish that once you boil it down to that fundamental problem, that, well, we can't explore that aspect of the story, so just go do nothing. No, go commission a different story. Save the 100 BC for an actual main range and give me something I can sink my teeth into, and give me another fun farce for this. I'm fine with that.
I'll go the other direction with that, though. I think that this is the place where you put that. And if this story is submitted to me as a series runner, I would look at this and go, this doesn't fit. This doesn't fit anywhere. But I have a spot for it. And this is the spot that I would put it. I would go, okay, we've got an anthology piece. Let's break this down to 30 minutes. Let's have some fun with it. Let's make this a unique, special thing. I think that's the opposite of what you're saying, but yeah.
I am. And as I listened to I got done with this one and went, okay. Listened to the rest of them and was a little more excited. Then I went back and did a little research and found out who wrote 100 BC, and I went, oh, never mind. Because it's Jacqueline Rayner.
Yeah.
And I've pretty much not liked anything she put out. So I just kind of had to chalk it up to oil and vinegar.
Yeah.
It's very much in the style. It's very much in Rayner's style, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rayner,
It felt
obviously,
very
she wrote
Shadows of
Earthworld.
Stone Rose.
She wrote Stone Rose, yeah.
Doctor Who and the Pirates.
Doctor Who and the Pirates.
Okay, I liked that one.
The Marian Conspiracy.
She
She
did that
can.
one too?
She
Yeah.
can
Okay,
sort
there's
of.
two that I
Well,
like.
that's just it. She can write Doctor Who, and she can not write Doctor Who. And sometimes
kinda
she
like
gets
Mark
it right.
Gatiss.
Sometimes she doesn't get it right. But or Paul Cornell, in my opinion. But in the vein of this, I think it works for what it is. So I see all your issues with it. I agree. Had this been a 2-hour piece, this would not have worked for me. I would have been tearing this thing apart. But for the 30 minutes,
But maybe
for a
it would
special
have been
edition,
better as
They
a
would have had
2-hour
to completely
piece.
they would have to have actually explored that
Right.
woman in the role and had been in an alternate.
Well, yeah,
universe
no, I agree with
during
you.
that
If
whole
we'd
thing.
gotten 2 hours of this running around and then had nothing happen at the
exactly.
end, yes, I agree with
That's
you.
why this works as 30 minutes. Had we, this wouldn't have worked in the way that it's written.
Okay,
as a
I get you
2-hour
now.
piece,
Yeah, but I
The,
don't know.
the concepts and ideas could have been explored differently, but then it would be shadows of this story. It wouldn't be what this story is. So
It
this
would
story
be
works
what
for
Evelyn
it is.
wanted it to do, which, while is interesting, for the time period is also unheard of. There's no way Julius Caesar would have ever been able to achieve what Julius Caesar did too.
Just the
they would have had
inherent
to do,
problems
They
with
would have had
that.
to do more things to.
Because the Senate probably would have killed her and said, no, we're not doing
The world
that.
would have been very different. It would have been interesting to see what that effect would have been, but it wouldn't have been what Evelyn wanted to achieve.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No.
You're entitled
You
to
have
that
very
one.
valid points, Sean. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong.
Those things just didn't bother us.
I really wanted to like it. I just didn't.
Well, we're going to be on the flip side on this next one.
My own private Wolfgang. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, born in 1756, a veritable wunderkind, playing music for the crowned heads of Europe as an infant, composing by the time he was 5 years old. But it's tempting to wonder whether his amazing longevity has overshadowed his creative genius. Would Mozart's music be better respected, maybe, if he died as a young man? Would he be a legend of music rather than a scientific curiosity if he'd never lived to compose the film score for the remake of The Italian Job?
Dun, dun, dun.
I kind of wish I had read this description going into the story because I was so confused at the beginning.
I would have been better
would
prepared for it had I read a synopsis for
Wait,
it.
they were talking about his hip-hop music and what?
It
It took
was-
me about halfway through the story to realize,
yeah.
that's what's going on here. It's an alternate timeline.
I had the exact same thing when they're going, oh, well, as long-lived as he is. And I went, what? And the Italian Job, what?
I'll be honest, I don't know the best of the history of Mozart. I didn't think he had been long-lived.
Haven't you seen
but
You haven't
Amadeus?
seen Amadeus?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I liked this one. I had the same problem. It took me till about the halfway point to finally latch on to
Once the
exactly
clones started
what was
showing
going
up, it's
on.
like, oh, okay, that's where you're going.
And then I was like, okay. And then the idea that, yeah, they just nipped back in time, got some DNA, and I thought to myself, this is a weird, nutty idea. And totally fitting with Doctor Who. Again, farcical. Very, yeah, right. But it worked. And it really worked for me. And then we got to the end, and I thought, it's almost kind of the same thing. It's almost like, well, nothing happened, except in this case we're actually fixing the timeline, even though we didn't know we needed to fix the timeline. But that worked for me. I was like, yeah, okay, this is kind of the reverse of what we did in 100. It has an ending. Okay, yeah, I like this one. It wasn't outstanding, but I enjoyed it.
It was fun.
It was just fun.
More than anything else.
See, and I to me, this one was over the top. This was too much farce for me. I felt that this one was playing a little flippant and silly with Doctor Who. I thought this one, the only reason I wouldn't poo-poo this story, because it is a farce, and I do recognize that. And for the same reasons that I say 100 BC works because of the capsule that it's presented in, this works because of the capsule it's presented in. But it was my least favorite because I sort of felt like Rob Shearman was going a little bit, I thought he was kind of pushing the envelope of being farcical, of being funny. immediately when it's revealed that it's Mozart's 100th birthday, I was already prepared to realize that this is an alternate timeline. This is something that happened differently. We're also clued into that because this supposedly happens before 100 BC, because in 100 BC it is mentioned that has already happened. Those events have already happened to the Doctor and Evelyn. She says, remember that mess with Mozart, and she talks about fixing that timeline before. So, which I thought was interesting that they didn't flip flop these when they played them. But this one played out second.
I like the fact that it was second.
But I kind of felt like
because it was so much more farcical, they didn't feel like they could lead with it.
I think that's what it is, and I think that because they felt that they were pushing the envelope just a little too far for me, I didn't enjoy this one as much. Not the self-replicating, but the cloning thing, I thought was a unique concept, but again, I think was a little too jovial and flippant with the idea that they became fashionable among the elite and then fell out of fashion, and you've got one that wants to go back and change things, and it to me that was just a little bit. It was like a soup of a story where there was just far too much stuff going on for 30 minutes. It just didn't come across to me as that good.
See, and I think that this is one that I don't think you could have sustained over a 2 hour.
I agree with you, and I give it credit for that. Any more than 30 minutes of this, and I'd gone, this is terrible.
I think it's
a holy terror.
It hit just the right amount of absurdity when Mozart's on his deathbed, and the Doctor shows up with Mozart. Don't believe this guy. And then Evelyn shows up with Mozart, and he's like, this guy? No, that's a different one. She changed my mind. It's the next guy you got to worry about. And then that Mozart shows up, and Mozart's like, okay, wait a minute.
I think the other thing that puts me off a little bit is that this Doctor and Evelyn already live in a world where Mozart is turned into pop funk and these different phases of his life.
I think it's supposed to set you off.
And I don't like that, because I think maybe in my headcanon, the Doctor lives somewhat in a similar world to the events that we know of. And while I think it's clever to say this in the Doctor Who universe has happened differently than it has in our universe, and he goes back and sets it straight to be...
See, that's one of the things I did like about it.
In line with our universe, to me, you've already started off going, okay, we're going way over the top here, and then railing it back.
It may make a difference if this was an earlier version of the Doctor running through these events, because essentially what you have now established is that throughout the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth Doctor's time, Mozart's 100 years old. That's just an established fact.
And has done hip-hop.
And none of them have questioned this.
Right.
Until now, because, well, now's when we wrote the story.
It probably would have worked better with, maybe the third Doctor or somebody younger.
And it's probably good that Rob Shearman wrote this, because he is so steeped in Doctor Who legend that he was familiar enough with the fact that, hey, you know what? They've never tackled Mozart, so I can say these kind of things and not contradict anything that's come before.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
I did too. I also, coming from it from the standpoint that I'm not the biggest fan of Amadeus, the movie.
The movie?
I appreciate it for what it is. I understand the Oscar nods and everything. It's okay. It really is a beautiful look at Mozart's life. It's just not one I really am going to go back and revisit. I've seen it. I can move on. But having seen it, and having seen it relatively recently, within the last 5 years or so for class, this coming on the heels of it brought a lot of that back. In fact, I suspected that the butler was Scagliari.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but I suspected that was the butler at one point.
Scarione?
Whoever the alternate guy was.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
The other composer who's...
F.A. Murray's character.
Yeah. The guy who kills Mozart.
Scarleone.
No, that doesn't sound right either.
Sound right either.
At any rate, I suspected that was him, and then was kind of led on the merry chase of, no, it's actually Mozart. So I think that maybe that's another thing that kind of built in the story's favor for me, is that I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming either. I didn't go to thinking it was that other guy, but I just, it's some butler.
Shall we move on?
Bedtime Story
Salieri.
Salieri, thank you.
Salieri.
Scaglieri is from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
We're not going there this week.
Scorby!
Bedtime Story. Once upon a time, Jacob Williams is going to tell this tale of Sleeping Beauty, but he realizes he has told that one too many times, so instead he tells of how he once met this man called the Doctor. It's a tale of love and death, and a family with a terrifying secret.
I don't have a big enough dun-dun-dun to get this story.
We're on the same page on this one.
Oh, my God.
Even the horrific ending was...
That's what made it work.
Yeah, well, that's it. Was right in line with the style of storytelling we were doing here. It was exactly the right way to end this story, especially since you're setting up as bedtime story. It has that element of, this may not end well.
and maybe it works so well coming off of my own Private Wolfgang, which is such a farce.
Yeah, it's almost
this one
extreme.
is not.
Yeah.
It is totally different from start to finish, and you kind of think you're getting...
Going back to my own Private Wolfgang, I really liked how it ended, too. The fact that it ended mid-sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was that one,
was
wasn't
so
it?
perfect for it. Okay.
I thought it was the next one. No, you're right.
Going back.
People don't like it when things end. But just the fact that it's so tonally different, because they kind of set you up with the grandmother being droning on about stories and people falling asleep and everything. You kind of have these little elements of, and it's like, no, it's just family stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then this other dark level kicks in,
And it's so in
Brain.
line with Doctor Who and the Pirates, where she goes to visit I didn't suspect that it wasn't Evelyn the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I felt stupid when the Doctor was lying it out. Well, the Evelyn wouldn't do this. Evelyn, I went, oh yeah.
Yeah, she would have been more interested in
Don't you feel
genealogy.
You kind of feel like duped. You're like, why didn't I spot that? Why didn't I figure that out?
I blame Jacqueline Rayner because Evelyn was out of sorts in the first story, and I wasn't looking for it at that point. Oh, this was so good. And I mean, you could knock it. You could go, well, the whole thing is just, you know, a tale of love gone wrong. You could, you know, her revenge plot is kind of corny. You could, no, none of that matter. When you find out the Doctor put all the sleeping people in the TARDIS and just carted them around for 100 years.
Yeah. Including Evelyn.
My heart broke a little
I
bit.
did too. I thought, but you know, just showed them the wonders of things and ticked off another 100 years of his life. On the other hand, 100 years is really a blink of an eye for a Time Lord.
It's true.
So it's a 2-week vacation for them.
And it gives some great depth to the Sixth Doctor even more. The fact that it gives him a little bit... He is older than we think he is.
Well, and it makes me cherish so much the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn in particular. They have such a wonderful companion Doctor relationship that I want more of it. I want much of it as I can get. And so anytime you give me an inkling that, oh yeah, we had 10 other adventures between that audio and this one, I'm happy. It's just like, good. I'm very happy with that. And the idea that Evelyn got 100 years of wonder, that she wasn't solving mysteries, she wasn't battling evil, she wasn't getting taken over by the Daleks and getting her shoes stuck in mud and dealing with medieval blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yes, I that made me insanely happy.
Yeah.
That was in there. And normally with the Big Finish stuff, I tend to try and do something else. Just either something to kind of keep my hands busy or, you know, not anything heavy. Like I don't read and listen to them, but, you know,
something that would distract your attention.
Puzzle putting together or Tetris playing. Something
to keep your mind from wandering.
Legacy, you know, something to do that. This one was all just, I had my knees or my hands up on the thing and just staring at the speaker, waiting for what's going to happen next. Oh, hook, line, and sinker. Fell for this one. Yeah. So good. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing.
No, there's nothing else better I could say about
Yeah,
it. You're hitting on everything that I felt as well about it.
And I love the fact that it also had the dark ending of he didn't actually win. That's the icing on the cake, really, more than anything else.
Well, and it's such an insidious evil. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Sleeping Beauty and why I hate Maleficent, because the idea that I'm going to put her to sleep and you're going to stay locked up for 100 years and then I'm going to let you go. the idea of that is just so terrible. And the fact that she's putting these people to sleep for 100 years, but they're not asleep.
They're aware.
In their coffins the entire time.
Yeah.
It's not even like they're laying in a bed. They know they've gotten buried alive.
Right, exactly.
And so I can only imagine that 100 years later, they wake up in the coffin and then die. They suffocate and die,
absolutely.
trying to claw their way out of it. Oh my God, this is an insidious, evil thing.
And another story that wouldn't have sustained 2 hours.
Yeah, no.
It's very much a in the vein of a Ray Bradbury story, or even some of Stephen King's short stories.
Yeah.
It's very much in the vein of that style of writing, and I think that's why I like it so much. As it comes across with that you nearly get the hopeful ending, and then you take the reader or the listener into a different direction, and I like that. I like that quick mood change just before you finish a story. Sometimes it's a nice touch, especially if you've weaved a very good story up to that point.
Yeah, I would agree.
Interesting, considering Joseph Lidster, who wrote it, started off with The Rapture, which I remember I don't think any of us were very enamored with. He went on to better things. He wrote Master, and we reviewed Terra Firma, and he's done some TV
I think we all quite
Sarah
enjoyed
Jane
the
Adventures.
Masters. So.
Yeah, we did like Master.
But
All right, let's move on.
The 100 Days of the Doctor. Someone has assassinated the Doctor, and he only has 100 days to find out who did it.
dun dun dun.
This is the best way to do a clip show in audio. And it's not even a clip show in the sense of a clip show where you're just showing clips.
Because you don't even hear the clips of
The
the events that you're
actor
at.
the characters get to go back and see events happening that have happened, transpired in the past, or in some cases, the future. And by stepping through all of Big Finish's catalog of Doctor Who up until this point was brilliant. Because not only do you go back and see the Fifth Doctor, Perry, and Ehrman, you go forward and see the Seventh Doctor, Ace, and Hex, which is brilliant because the way that it's expounded upon is they're trying to find out at what point an assassin has injected the Doctor with the virus that's going to kill him in 100 days. And we have all of this Big Finish that has happened, and it's not just the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn stories that we're nodding back to. It's everything that has come before episode 100. And by using the vehicle of the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn to look back on not only, as I mentioned, the Fifth Doctor, the Seventh Doctor, but the Eighth Doctor, Cariz, Charlie, the Eighth Doctor, and Lucy, because we get two versions of which is clever. We get two versions of the Eighth Doctor, one who's traveling with Lucy, the other who's traveling with Charlie and Cariz. And then to do the clever sidestepping into the Unbound universe, seeing a Doctor that's not even in that Doctor's timeline per se, and getting talking about Bernie, and then later talking about Braxtol and Bernie. And I don't know if you guys know this because we haven't done any Bernie yet, but Braxtol. Here's a little spoiler.
Oh, we did Human Nature. She was in
it, but Braxtol is the Doctor's brother. And he was actually introduced in the Virgin New Adventures and carried on through the Doctor Who Big Finish range. So Bernie Summerfield. I think he is in one story that we had reviewed now, and we weren't quite clear on who the.
Oh wait, no, we did do because we did
the
two Seventh Doctor stories that we did had Bernie. We did a companion archive with her.
Those were the side steps, but none of those had Braxtol. That's what I'm focusing on.
They weren't. But they weren't side steps.
Those were side steps
technically because they were part of the main range, but
they were main range, but they're considered side steps within the within the continuity.
He was in Zagreus.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Okay.
He is mentioned in Zagreus, and we had a conversation.
That's why
about,
the name was familiar.
Yeah, we had a conversation about how we weren't quite sure who this Braxtol was.
He's also in a main character for Gallifrey.
Yes,
the series.
He's in more Big Finish as we'll go along and explore more Big Finish, but not much in the Big Range or the Big Finish main range, with the exception of Zagreus. That's right.
Okay.
I knew he was a story, and I couldn't remember what it was. Anyway, he's supposedly the Doctor's brother. That's all I'll say. But anyway, to get that, and then nods to Unit, Gallifrey, things that had been coming out at the time before this as well, I thought was a brilliant way to do this and step through. And then I thought the resolution I thought was brilliant. I thought the fact that they do track down on the 100th day, talk about cutting it close, tracking down the assassin and being able to thwart the assassination attempt was clever.
Well, and all the
especially sorry, Keith, the way he does it by breaking the vial
the fake
and
vial
evil and thinking he's at his death. This is totally not the doctor. He would never do something like this. And I love how the doctor says, "I would hope that you would understand that," because he didn't. I like that.
Well, and I also liked about the story all the meta stuff in it of talking about the viewers and the audience.
Yes.
And no, it's the Time Lords watching through the space.
I wondered as soon as he said that, I was like, I wonder how they're going to get out of
this.
this.
The fourth wall in audio. Oh, wait a minute. Nope.
No, they're just talking about nice reference to the chase.
And
too.
What a wonderful moment when he says, at one time I felt my time in this incarnation would be so brief.
Oh, yeah.
And he's talking about his short term on...
all of the meta stuff, talking
well,
about all of that
when they're
stuff.
looking at the fifth Doctor, and he's like, oh, everybody loved him, everybody was great.
It was a holiday being him.
You sound a little jealous. And I was like sad. I was like, oh, this is not... Did anybody else gear up for when they finally revealed that it was the fifth Doctor? I was like, okay, here comes Peter Davidson. Nope.
I was a little
disappointed. You expected maybe some audio from him?
I thought we would have had select as soon as they set that up that's what they were doing. I was like, oh, okay. And then now we just got.
Actually, I'm sort of glad they didn't.
I am too.
After
the way it played out, I'm glad it didn't do that because then it would have become.
He and Evelyn are just observers.
Yeah. And I like that they don't nail down what adventures they were viewing either.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that as well.
Yeah, I didn't want to have a specific. Oh, that's where this is slotted in.
That's why I say it's like doing a clip show without doing clips of a clip show. Yeah.
I also got the same kind of warm fuzzies when Evelyn on the last day talks about, oh, remember when we went here and learned how to fly kites and did all this kind of stuff, and the doctor says, yeah, it was one of my favorite days, and I got warm fuzzies again because it's like, oh, I like these stories.
And not a day that we're familiar with. Another clip for the doctor.
Yeah. Just a nice little thing. I thought it was a wonderful way to end it. It was a fun story, and I was getting concerned as time started, and then there was that weird, like, oh, we were day 67. Oh, how many days are left? I'm not kidding. Yes, you are. 16. Oh, wow. What? I started to get concerned because it's like you're kind of cutting. Now, obviously, it's going to go all the way down. The clock's got to go all the way down to 001 before you pull the red cord.
Of course.
I know this, but
good news. I can put another tick in the stories by Paul Cornell that I like.
Oh, did you write this one?
He wrote this one. So. That column is outweighing the ones that I don't like.
What a good person to write this type of story, so steeped into Big Finish stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he was the perfect choice for that, knowing as much as he knows about Big Finish. So.
And you kind of tipped me off that it was going to be a clip show, so I kind of knew going in that, we're probably going to visit. I did not expect to visit as much as we did with Bernie and with
Benny. I keep calling her Bernie, but it's Benny. Yeah.
Bernice. And the Unbound adventures and all of that. The Unbound especially surprised me.
Yeah,
I guess partially because I didn't realize that it had come out so early in the run of Big Finish. Right. Since we're approaching these so
I think only the first Unbound series had come out by this time. So.
I also very much enjoyed the when Evelyn asked, "Why have we not seen any from your first four?" And I waited for him. To say copyright law. Just throw something out there. And instead, it's like, just random chance so far. And I was like, oh, okay.
At least they referenced it.
I'm good with that.
It's just
as much as I didn't like last week's.
It was the icing on the cake for a anthology series.
Oh yeah,
it really
absolutely.
Was.
And I look forward to more anthology series because I know they've done other ones with the Sixth Doctor, and if they're all done in this style, I think I will enjoy them.
I'm not gonna lie. I almost wonder if this isn't a better format in some regards.
That's a good point.
Because there are several of them that we've reviewed that we kind of felt like it didn't need to be as long as
And
it was.
is this the
there was
first
a lot of-
anthology they've done? Do you guys know?
It's the first one we reviewed.
Well,
I know it's the first one we reviewed, but I
in
know we jump
audio,
around
yes.
too.
Now, Big Finish has done. I think
I suppose
going into
technically
this.
Sirens of Time could fall.
Going
that,
into
but-
this,
Yeah,
I
those will
knew
tie
that
in.
this was going to be in good hands, and the reason being is because Big Finish has released all of those short trip books that they have done, where they've contracted writers and they've put anthology pieces together in book form, because those were all published by Big Finish and BBC Books, and so
I didn't know
they've
Big
al-
Finish had anything to do with those.
They have been in charge of those, so I knew it was in good hands that they were going to be able to formulate an anthology series.
It's the second audio anthology they've done. First one was Circular Time. I'm trying to pull up who's in that.
I don't think we've
That's
done that yet, have
Fifth
we?
Doctor and Nyssa. Release number 91.
Oh, we just haven't got
Yeah,
to it
we
yet.
haven't got
Yeah,
to it
so
yet.
Written by Paul Cornell.
Yep.
And Mike Maddox.
So there you go.
I look forward to that one now.
Yeah.
I just as disappointed as I was last week with the Big Finish audio. Flip that around. That's how excited I am this week for this one.
I would agree.
Really, and wow, if you did nothing but bought 100 and went and listened to Bedtime Story and called it good, you got whatever you paid for it out of it.
You got your
because it
money's
was
worth.
that good.
I would agree. You might not get as much out of it listening to 100 Days of the Doctor if you hadn't heard any of the Big Finish prior to
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
That is the one thing that kind of pigeonholes that story in, is I think it's much more appreciated when you have enough early Big Finish under your belt. And I think luckily at this point we had enough Big Finish under
Well,
our
and
belt.
it's not quite fan wank, but it's there. There's just
Service.
fan service. Yeah, you're going to have to.
It's not winking at the fans.
It's not quite fan service, but it's there.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on to the comics?
Let's. We don't have synopses for those.
That's
we pick up where we
You
left
don't
off.
have to say every week that we have a comic. We don't have a synopsis
Just
for it.
remind
People will always know that they don't have a synopsis for the comics.
So what are we reviewing?
We're starting with issue 6.
No, this would be a good time for
Oh,
you.
the 10th Doctor. Issue 6 of year 2.
This
All
is issues 6 through 10 we're going to do, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure I read the right ones.
So the good news is we pick up right where we left off, which was kind of a concern last week. We didn't know where we were going.
Indeed.
Which really ties in a lot to more than I expected it to.
It does a lot. I don't know. I feel a little let down overall. It's the first 3 stories that really kind of tie up the business that we began with, dealing with,
all the way back to issue 3.
Yeah, that we've got all of these companions that have been brought together, and we did get more of our group with I can't remember
The
their
bounty
names.
hunters
The bounty
or
hunter and
yeah.
the mercenaries, and Jack and everything.
Which, I'm sorry, but Jack just feels shoehorned in.
It did. A
He
lot of
seems
it felt
unnecessary.
shoehorned in.
Jack's especially seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
Other than, that's somebody who will immediately recognize the Doctor, even though Cindy should too.
Yeah.
It's
It felt unnecessary. It felt stunt casting, if you will.
and it almost felt like they were trying to set up, especially with the way the issue ends, set up whatever they're going to do with Torchwood. I guess is that
Maybe that was the whole purpose
6
of it.
or is that 7? That was 7. Wasn't
7 was the last of that business, yeah.
I sort of suspected that was the reason for bringing Jack in to this line, was because it was kind of a precedent to, hey, guess what? We got Torchwood as well.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that they're going to tie into Torchwood,
the way
but
they
more of
ended with-
a promo type thing.
Yeah, well, just the way it ends with him almost teaming up with what's his face and what's her face from the last year. That's how much of an impact they've left
Eric
on me.
and
Yeah,
Chloe.
Chloe.
yeah. Leaving them kind of like, okay, well, you can start, and here's a base for you. So here's your new Torchwood, is the way it just kind of seemed like it was all set up for that moment where
Which I'd have been
they
fine
established
with.
new Torchwood.
I'd have been fine with that. It would have felt like a really cool capstone to the story if it had been a Jack, Cleo, and Eric story. If there
Yeah.
had been a reason for them to be there. But unfortunately, the only reason for them to be there was to set up new Torchwood.
if that is the case.
And
if it's not the case, that's going to make the story even worse.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that it's even a direct tie-in. I think it's more of we're going to feature Jack before we spin off into Torchwood.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that any of this would relate, but that here's Jack again. Remember this guy, even though we've just got him in the Ninth Doctor miniseries recently. But here's Jack again. We're going to utilize him to his fullest. To me, it felt like self-promotion, which I was quite fine with it. I loved this 2-story arc. I loved the fact that it picks up after last week, and in fact, these 2 stories made. Last week I was poo-pooing a lot of the story arc we did, and I was upset that we didn't get
it 2. Sorry.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of development in this one. Last week we didn't get a development enough of that team that came in, the mercenaries that came in. I really felt that this kind of didn't pay it off 100%, but I felt like this kind of went above and beyond to kind of do a little more with them, because I was afraid they would get just kind of dropped out of everything and never dealt with again. But we go right into that.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I see where you're coming from. I agree that we at least did something with them instead of just having them show up and then disappear.
Yeah.
They are here, and they are, for better or for worse, kind of an integral part of the story, especially when half of them become evil. And are being led by Gabby to stop the stuff from going down. But it still felt shoehorned is really the only way I think I can describe it. That you could have done this story and added a couple of issues to it and fleshed everybody out and given them a reason to be there, and it would have been really good. I think it would have really justified the first half of it.
I think they're in these 2, I think the memory loss would have gotten old after the first issue. I'm glad they resolved that problem. And once they get their memory, then it's why aren't they taking care of the issue?
Well, but why did we need to lose the memory in the first place?
That's a good point, too.
That's what I really liked about this, though, is I felt that this was an experiment by Ebonite. This was entertainment for him. This was testing of them, of their skills, of their different adaptations, of how they are, how they interact as a group. And I think that's what I like most about this, is the fact that they go into it without memory. They have no idea. They're learning from each other based on their strengths and their weaknesses, not based on preconceived knowledge because they know them.
That's true.
So what it does is it drills down to their core basics. And luckily, each one of them sort of retains their character of who they are. Jack retains all of the things about him that he is. Cindy retains all the things about her that she is. And the group does as well. Especially coming across then the Doctor, who's in meditation with the others. And it was a bit odd that there was suddenly this attack. But I kind of think that was rectified as well by him saying it was a direction that was implanted in them to do that. And when they speak the names, they kind of break out of it and they start to retain those memories. I thought it worked really good. In fact, I thought it worked great. Now, like I said, I think it retroactively fixed issues that I had with the first 5 issues. Well, the last 2 at the very least. But everything that they've been doing to set up seemed to kind of culminate here at a mid-season climax, which I think is similar to what they did with A Good Man Goes to War, the year that they broke up the series. This felt the same way, as we were doing a mid-season climax, and I think that a lot of this is also going to be revisited again into the end of the season. I hope a lot of this, it gives me an impression it will be, but I think
because we still haven't dealt with the bigger issue.
I think then later on, retroactively, this will get even better for me. But I thoroughly enjoyed this 2-story arc. I thought it was a great way to do nothing. Don't get me wrong. That sounds bad, but it was a great way to not have a lot going on, because there is a lot going on, but you don't have to think about the complexities of the plot. It's very simple, and it brings everybody together in such a way that I think that it really explores their characters, at least their inner core of their characters, in a really good way. I also don't feel that Jack was shoehorned in here. My impression of this was Jack was sort of there for a purpose, but I don't think we know what that purpose is yet.
And that's the way
and that's the impression I'm getting.
That's
and maybe
true.
I'm giving them more credit because I came from the last 5 issues going, I don't feel like this really did anything to set anything up, and they proved to me that they did do something to set things up. The last 3 episodes of that first 5-episode arc led right into this. We had that center story that I felt like was just nothing, and then the 2 stories where I felt like we were kind of thrown into the action. Here is the reason why all of that setup was necessary. And I think
really liked that they also brought Monmouth and Muthmana, the two Neanderthals, into it too. That we just didn't leave them behind.
I'll have to admit, when Monmouthna came in, I went, how come it looks like a girl now? Because I was confusing the two characters.
I did too.
And it wasn't until we got a little ways into it that I went, oh wait, this is the daughter.
I did too.
The artwork's terrible on this. Who did that? Oh wait, that's because that's not the same character. I think, while I felt that Ebonite was just bizarrely used, I liked the Ebonite character from the first story that we got him in. While I thought he was kind of bizarrely used, I thought he was used fully effectively in this story, and it worked. I think the only thing that I come down on is the resolution of this story. Unfortunately,
it's kind of a similar resolution to the last time.
Ebonite sort of falling apart into little tiny separate versions of himself, and then them just kind of stamping on him. I thought that was
they're not getting all of them, so he's going to come back.
Exactly. I thought that was kind of random and bizarre, but he didn't hate it. It was just
they had kind of set up the idea that it's multiple beings in one in that first issue with Ebonite. So, and I think the fact that they didn't fully defeat him is because he's coming back later.
Do you think Ebonite perhaps planted the virus in the that he's going to be our character to plant the virus in the music?
I would think
from
so.
The first two stories.
I like how all of that tied back in together too.
Yeah.
Even from the first year, tied back into resolving what happened to Gabby.
We've called that back. That was the other interesting thing about this is, and I think that what I also liked about this, and I was afraid they would drop it, and they don't, is what happens to Gabby, how she's been kind of changed in this process. And it really kind of lends to that we were talking about last week, how we're going to all these different artistic places, we're going to all these artistic stories, there's none of that in this 5-issue arc. Mm-hmm. And we have actually evolved Gabby as a character as well. And I think this does a nice job of setting that up as well.
There was a reference, and it flashed as a kind of okay, that wasn't this year, that was last year. But so something happened last year that changed her too, right? Like physically? Am I get that wrong?
Yeah, no, the episode with the living art.
Yeah, way back then.
Way back in season 1, apparently, because Gabby spent some time tutoring.
Which was alluded to in the Cindy, the Dr. Light story that we got.
That apparently...
We're reminded of that.
Whatever she learned wasn't just...
mental. There was some biological change.
Biological and metaphysical,
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
She can apparently create energy butterflies.
And I like that continues.
I thought that was cool.
Into the next issue.
That's what I was afraid of, is that they would drop that by the time we got to issue. I guess we skip it. Both of those, but yeah. We do. Well, the first issue of that story, we do skip over that, but
this storyline was enjoyable. It just felt kind of like some things felt more forced to me than it did for Glenn.
I don't know. I feel like for the setup that we were given, then everybody was kind of like, well, I don't know where we're going with this, with the cavemen and I wanted a little bit more out of it. I agree with you. It's a fine story for what it is. I just kind of thought we were...
And I agree with you. I think we will get better appreciation for it once we've finished year 2.
That's true. I'm fully ready to admit that, again, kind of like with where we were last week, this week has added a layer to that maybe... Because I haven't got to it yet, but I have complete change of heart considering something I didn't like last week. So
I admit, I think maybe my appreciation for these stories, these particular 2 that we're talking about now, were elevated by the fact that I was let down from the first story arc. Because, like I say, retroactively that it makes me appreciate the setup that they were doing to come to this point.
Well, let's move on to issues 8 and 9, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Forgot what the name of this one was.
The Witch of the Well.
The Witch of the Well. Witch in the Well.
The Wishing Well Witch.
Yeah, that one.
Your synopsis of the story was correct there, Sean. It is The Witch in the Well.
The Witch in the Well. The Wishing Well Witch, you're correct. Okay. So it's a 2-parter. And I was kind of like, okay, cool. Knowing going into it that it's only going to be another 2 segments. All right, we're going to go. And it's a completely different story from what we had before. And it doesn't really carry on. Okay, cool. Loved it. Really enjoyed it. At least mostly. I really liked the first one. I thought the first half of it set up this kind of fun Scooby-Doo styled. And even the doctor goes, well, it's obviously not a witch, you know.
Right.
I do love a mystery. Oh, we're here for a supernatural book fair.
Paranormal literary festival.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
Supernatural book fair, literary fair.
Well, that's just what the banner said was literary.
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. I'm just saying. Again, he has synopsisized what it is.
And you say we don't have synopses. We do get another artist,
which I think the art in this issue is beautiful.
I was referring to the crazy homeless guy who Jacob, was that his name? What was his name?
Oh, where is it?
Randall.
Josh. No,
Jacob Randall. Kind
of. No, it was Randall.
It's Randall.
So we've got another artist who's, he's sketching the 7 different faces of the witch. And I was like, okay, cool, we're going through the thing. And then we get to the second half of the story, and the witch gets out and wreaks all kinds of havoc. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, this is pretty good. And then you get to the ending, and it's like, whoa, what an amazing turn of the key that I didn't see coming with that.
Oh, yeah,
of what the witch
is. That was really impressive.
And that how she got there.
Yeah.
That she's actually, we can say it, we're reviewing these, right?
Yeah.
She's actually children from Gallifrey.
Well, we learned that in the second episode.
Right.
Yeah. Or second issue.
That's what I said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got to the resolution.
I fell behind.
He jumped ahead.
I jumped ahead.
Okay.
These children were not only from Gallifrey, not only Time Lords, which is why they have 7 different faces, because it's all, they've kind of been merged together into one entity, but that they were chucked into the Untempered Schism, that it was deliberate. Somebody threw them in there. And it's like, whoa. So now I'm really super intrigued with where this is going to go. And it doesn't. It just kind of ends. I'm like, okay, you've got to be setting me up for something else now.
I really hope so.
I really hope that's where that's going to go.
It certainly does. And in fact, I think I like the way that the doctor goes off and he's distracted in the next story because of the events, what's going on here. At the very end of this, he's very solemn and quiet. He doesn't say anything. Even when Cindy and Gabby are excited that, hey, we solved the mystery. We fixed everything here. Everybody's okay. Yeah. And they get into the TARDIS and they're like, Doctor, you're okay. And he's really solemn and doesn't say anything to them. And I like the fact that he's this is percolating. He's thinking, who would have possibly done this? Because to me, that clearly sets up the fact that we're going to address this later.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
So now, to me, that feels like we're setting up a lot of things to come to fruition by the end of this, and that bothers me a little bit. But that we're going to have too much things going on leading into the climax of the season or the year. But I like,
considering there's only 6 after this one.
Yeah. So
5 or 6. Yeah.
But I like the fact that we have gone there and clearly said this is something that we aren't just going to. This isn't a loose thread. We're just going to leave there. So again, I loved this story arc. Even I think the thing that that bothered me the most about this was the blatant use of these people come out of this with OCD. And I suppose you could have picked a worse condition for somebody to have to relegate it to a symptom of being taken by this witch. I mean, it could have been worse. But to me, that seemed a little crass to say we've suddenly diagnosed them with OCD. It could have been some sort of mystery mental condition that didn't have to be named, but they just continue to say, they've got OCD, and everybody recognizes it. He ended up with OCD, and they throw OCD around like this phrase.
The great thing is the one mom is, but you can't catch OCD.
Yeah, well,
she helps lay that seed.
That works, but I think, and that's I think what grounds it perhaps is, but. I felt it was overused as it felt overused as a device to me, and I didn't appreciate that, because there are people out there that are misdiagnosed with OCD, and there are people that genuinely have OCD, and I think that they played a little fast and loose with something that is a serious condition among people that is real.
This could have benefited from, instead of maybe a trip to somebody's house. You can't do it with this particular story, but maybe if there had been a case that was a little more severe or something, a trip to the hospital. The scene in the Empty Child Dr. Dances, where he goes to the hospital and he talks to the medical doctor who's showing him all of these people in the ward who have these weird afflictions and things like that.
If they could have done something like that.
If they'd had something
It would've
like
worked better,
that,
yes.
and the doctor said the closest we can describe these symptoms is OCD.
Yes, and then
And
that's
the
the
doctor
only
says,
mention of it.
you can't catch OCD. I know.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly,
then that would have
exactly.
worked great.
Yeah.
But as it was, they kind of played fast and loose with it, and the mom's comment that you can't catch it felt lost in the shuffle.
Exactly, and it works to identify that there's
And it's not actually OCD.
or that it's a situation brought on by something else that OCD doesn't
Because
necessarily.
I don't think at any point in time any of us thought, oh, yeah, they got OCD out of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
These
it's
people
just- so-
missing part of their brain is what's going on.
But that being said, that was the only problem that I had with it. Again, I felt like that now. Yeah, I kind of felt like the story didn't. It was fascinating where it went, how the witch is tethered to this one spot because of the time anomaly. The reason the time anomaly there is because of the children within the were cast into the
And way to
temperance
do
schism.
perfect Doctor Who with giving us something supernatural on the surface that winds up having a very scientific rationale
I love
to
when
it.
they do that. I love when they do
That's
that.
my favorite thing.
And the not only the concern of who would do this, but Gallifrey, and he makes mention, Gallifrey's time locked. So this would have had to have happened long ago.
Yeah.
And how did
Ancient
this happen, and
Gallifrey.
who did this? Yeah, I loved that.
I also like the fact that we build off of the last story arc with Gabby and her exploring her abilities now. That is really cool. That excites me even more about more comics on the line.
I would agree. And in fact, that's what, when she did that, I thought, oh, good, you didn't just drop that.
Yes.
Because they could have so simply said, well, this was merely an ability that was manifested within her while they were in the arena. But it's not. It's more than that, and I love that they've carried that through.
Do we want to talk about the different art style?
We can chat about it a bit.
I wasn't as impressed with this issue's art.
The second issue I didn't like nearly as much as the first. The first one really knocked it out of the park
Yeah,
for me.
eight was
styling.
phenomenal. 9 to me was just kind of, it's there. It wasn't until it was brought to my attention as something that bothered Sean about it. Yeah.
I feel throughout issue 9 that our particularly our two female lead characters, Cindy and Gabby, are overly sexualized in this. I feel there was a lot of choices that were made with how they were portrayed in specific panels that didn't really seem to be necessary for anything other than.
It seems out of place and out of character for a Doctor Who comic.
Yeah. For any other comic, it would have been fine.
Well,
maybe not fine, but
not
it
any
wouldn't-
other
that would-
comic, but
for any other comic,
for
it wouldn't necessarily have been
certain comics
unexpected.
yeah, exactly. We should put out there that it is our belief or understanding that this is a female artist. So this isn't a male putting over-sexualized images within a comic book of women. So I want to put that out there and make that clear. It is our understanding that this is a female artist. So not to put any sort of gray area out there as to what somebody may be intentionally doing.
I just felt surprised by it, and it's something that if I notice it, it's kind of like I always fall back on the Mary Whitehouse explanation. If I notice it, then maybe there's a thing there, because I'm kind of like, everything's okay, nothing bothers me. You're all being too overly PC about stuff. But if I notice something, maybe there's some smoke there.
Keith and I didn't get that out of that.
Yeah,
We didn't see
notice
that.
it.
We didn't notice it.
I noticed the art change.
I noticed the art change as well. There was one panel that I thought looked a bit like a skirt was a little too high, is what it looked like to me. But I didn't dwell on it, and it didn't certainly catch it anywhere else but that one moment. So it was obvious when Sean pointed it out to me, but it wasn't.
But is it
something
obvious
came
that
across.
after I pointed it out to you, was it obvious because it's there, or was it obvious because I planted the seed of you thinking that it was going to be there, and now all of a
possibly.
sudden you saw it?
And I think we're just really kind of placing it out there. I don't think we're going to go delve into being judgmental
No.
about it, but we did have some concern over it. I suppose.
It surprised me from multiple standpoints, one being that this is a Doctor Who comic, one being that these are not who these characters have been represented as so far.
Yeah, and honestly, I have more issue with the fact that they don't, throughout the entire line of this issue, they don't look like the characters are supposed to be. It never looks like David Tennant to me. It looks like somebody else in David Tennant's clothes.
Yeah. In this issue in particular.
In this issue.
The rest of
The
them
other
have been-
issues it looks good. This issue doesn't.
I agree, and I think I've always come down on the side of I try not to be too judgmental about a artist's characterization, that the art either has to be good or isn't. As far as representation of the character, I think that I familiarize with what you're saying, that it doesn't quite look like David Tennant, it's not right. Then again, I think that's part of artwork, that's part of an artistic choice, so I can't come down on it too much, but I did notice that.
Maybe that's why I didn't notice the sexuality in the art, because
you were
I was distracted by these don't look like the characters are supposed to be.
Right.
I can see that. Going back through this and looking at David Tennant's face, it's like, no, it's not David Tennant's face.
Even the what's his name? The old guy.
Yeah, Randall looks remarkably
different.
Yeah.
Same clothes, but that's about it. And even then, the clothes aren't consistent in this either. So
yeah. Just throwing that out there.
Do you remember off the top of your head who the artist for the 8th issue was?
For the 8th issue? No, but I can go back and look.
I have it right here.
Eleanor something.
Was it Elena?
Eleonora
okay.
Carlini.
Okay. Because when we get to issue 10, I noticed that the characters look very much, David Tennant looks very much like David Tennant by this time again.
I think this was probably my favorite
and this
of the
this
issues.
is actually a different artist.
Elena Casagrande.
Yeah, is this one.
What a great name,
now,
Casagrande.
That being said, you said this is one of your favorites?
I think I really like this issue.
I think the problem that I did too, I enjoyed this story. I enjoyed where they were going with the story. The problem that I have with this issue is I feel like I need the next story, which we have stopped in the middle of a cliffhanger to me.
It does set up something.
And I think it feels well enough to stand alone, but it's setting up so much that I kind of came at it as I'm not sure I can judge this issue yet. I'm not sure I can judge this story without the fruition.
And what I really liked about this story is the bubbles and Cindy off on her own in this little weird bubble, not really TARDIS corridor, and her danger of, that's not just the witch. Danger can also happen inside the TARDIS too, and that exploration for a new companion is always enjoyable to me.
Yes.
That's what I liked about the story the most, is the Cindy storyline.
And it's a wonderful device to bring a new companion on board and give us a TARDIS story. Because we as the listeners, we as the readers can learn something new about the TARDIS while introducing that element to a new companion.
It's kind of like that 11th Doctor issue from last year that I really liked, where we were in the 4 different time zones in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
It has that kind of feel to it.
It is similar to that.
It also does a nice job of kind of cementing Cindy's place, because we've kind of been up and down with her. I mean, her initial story with this group, she didn't necessarily equate herself terribly well, but the Doctor still invited her along, and then she turns him down.
Yeah.
So automatically, in my book, you have a black mark against you because you said no. Okay, so then she comes back. Okay, cool. All right, we're going along, and she's fine in the conclusion of the 2-parter with the people. She does well there. There are moments in the witch story that she doesn't. She's really, and she berates herself.
She becomes
for
a
it,
victim in that as well, though.
Well, but when she's kind of mean to Cindy or to Gabby about stuff, and she berates herself for it. But it's like, you were kind of mean there, and then she becomes the victim and is one of the people that has had part of her mind stolen. So she's relatively ineffectual for the end of it.
Dealing with some of the after effects in this too.
Right.
Yes.
But this
Which
one,
I'm glad they carried over.
Yeah. Again, that it wasn't just a quick end. But this one kind of allows her to be on her own in some regard, and yet still tethered to the Doctor and the universe. And this is the kind of companion that she's going to be. And it's like, okay, I get a better sense now of where your potential lies, and I hope that we go there with it.
Yeah.
For her as a character.
I would agree. They're really doing a good job of continuing to not only expand Gabby's character, but to give us a lot more about Cindy's character as well, developing her character as well. I also like when they cleverly bring in, wait, Doctor, you told me that the TARDIS was not only invulnerable, but impermeable, practically impermeable. And bringing in a device in which you can step around and say, this is a different situation. Yeah. We have pocket dimensions within here. And that's something that can't be kept out because the TARDIS is basically holding these pieces together. And I liked that because it was a step away from, it's not quite invulnerable because there is a vulnerability, and here it is.
Yeah.
I can say psychic projection, mental force of that power. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to come together. And I thought to myself, this is the way to do it.
This is where Anubis should have been brought back.
Yep.
This is the spot. We
didn't need him
did
at
not
all.
need the
in
reminder
any of the
at
rest of
beginning
it.
of the series.
This would have been, yes.
And the other thing I was thinking about this upon reflection after we had recorded last week, because I started stewing about Anubis being there early. Because if you guys will remember, I didn't have as much problem with it until you guys talked about it, and then it convinced me that, yeah, that was way too soon. And I stewed about it, and I thought, it's not like we went on a 2-month break or a 3-month break. The issues still come out monthly.
It's true.
And so we would have gotten the issue last month. So it's not like going from year 1 and year 2 and having, a 6-month break or a 3-month break in there. We just saw the conclusion of year 1. If we were reading these month to month, we just saw the conclusion of that a month ago.
Well,
No, it would have been longer than that.
it was a little bit longer than that because they did the 4-Doctor event crossover.
And then they took a break for that.
Oh, they
And then
did
there was-
take
and then
a
they
break.
came back. And then they came back. So, I mean,
And even still...
But they came back and they
was-
concluded the
it
series.
would have
though.
only been...
No, I think they
The
concluded...
4-Doctor event was in the middle.
No, it was, well, in between seasons.
It was in between.
It was.
Yeah.
Okay, well then...
It was in the
Well,
middle
then
of
I'm
the
going to
12
have to go
Doctors.
back. I'm going to have to go back and
But even still...
forgive them for it because
This is coming
if
out
you
monthly.
if you took 3 months off to do that special event, 4 months off to do that special event.
I don't
well,
think
that
it was that
bi-monthly.
long.
It was 2 months.
I
We
think
were
it was
getting
2
two a
months in
month,
between.
2 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, bi-monthly. So, okay, but still, they took 2
I
months
can
off.
see
So
why they felt that-
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna flip flop on this again and say I'm not as problematic about that. Then that they reminded us. Now,
Well, and putting it in
agreed.
the
Now
perspective
looking at
of
this,
month
they
to
didn't have
month.
to. But
I mean, if you think about it, this is 10 months into this line. If we're getting one issue of the 10th
this issue
Doctor,
is
Yeah.
But we're talking about the one that was early
the
on.
third
yeah.
issue.
Well, I think what Keith's trying to say is
that
that
was
if
still
you,
at least
if,
5 months from when we finished, if
If
not
they-
more, since we finished.
I guess it
year
was. It
one.
was at the end of the 2 issues that started this series this month,
It was-
or this year, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
if they hadn't done it early, if
So it
this
was still,
was
there
the
was
first
still a
appearance,
3-month break.
if
so.
this was the first appearance of Anubis, this is issue 10. That's 10 months. Plus the 2 months for the 5 Doctors. It's been a year since we would have seen
So,
Anubis.
okay,
Yeah.
So I
then,
can
you know what?
understand to that
I am
point.
back. I am back to the. I don't. Then I'm back to the. It doesn't bother me so much.
See,
that
I
we
can
reminded of
understand the
Anubis.
Putting it
editor's
in that-
fear.
in that
Putting it in that context,
Yes.
I can understand the editor's
The
fear.
other
that
hand
maybe
is,
we needed
though,
that.
we're doing this nearly a full 10 months from the last issues that came out, not so much that long. Well, nearly 6 months since we reviewed 10th Doctor stuff, and we remembered it. So
I just feel like the reveal
and we had
would have had
references
more
and
impact.
dialogue throughout the run.
The,
Which
the
to
reveal
me
would have had more impact
enough.
here at this point. We would have gone, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that.
to me, agreed, that was enough just to have reference in dialogue, and then come back and say, "Whoop, oh, remember this? Yeah, this is the perfect timing for that."
Because I think honestly, it would have been issue 1 and 2, and maybe there was that little scratching in my head, going, well, "What happened to the Anubis story arc?" And then I'd have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And then it would have all come back up. I was like, oh,
Right.
and it would have literally reared its ugly head.
Well, it would have been more impactful, I think, too,
Yeah.
than giving us that.
I think the surprise is worth it. Dealing with the end of this, not just the Anubis reveal, but the fact that we get
Dorothy Bell.
Dorothy Bell back, and I like the fact that she's kind of adopted herself fully into the Egyptian stylings
Yeah.
and things. I like the fact that she and Anubis have this
Relationship.
relationship's a good way to put it. It's a little strange, but it's there and it works for them. And it's like, I like that they've hit this level of, I don't know what it is, friendship or camaraderie. And the glowing green statue eyes at the end is like, oh.
Other than what he asked the Doctor to do, it kind of made me wonder why we were keep bringing this up, and now I'm kind of seeing where they're going with it because of those green eyes.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Sutek. I think it ended well. Again, it feels like it seems like there's a lot of setup into the end of the year, and I'm partially excited about that. I am partially fearful that we've now given
we've got
far
5
too
issues
much
left of the year 2.
We've got far too much that we have to deal with now, but we'll see how they handle it. Retroactively, they fixed the first 5 issues for me.
I'd be
with
okay
these
if
5
they
issues,
wound up
so-
pushing off the Untempered Schism Gallifrey storyline resolution to next year.
Yeah, perhaps, and that's a tactic they could adopt.
Or even if they flipped it and we got
that resolution.
if we got the
pushed off
Untempered
Sutex
Schism
stuff.
falling out over the next 5 issues, and the kind of resolution of that led into the cliffhanger event that was going to become Sutek is back, and that's all we deal with in season 3.
That'd be
That's
good
certain-
too.
I'd
that
be good with
certainly
that
could
too.
work,
Yeah.
Because if you're going to bring
it would be hard to
Sutek
do
back,
both.
if you're going to bring Sutek back, don't rush it. Don't ruin it. Let it be its thing, because Sutek is a
Well,
bad guy.
here's the
Yeah.
thing, though. Then that would,
up here.
if they were to do that, that would also retroactively fix the fact that they brought Anubis in at the end of those first 2 stories. Because if you're really going to push all of that event off into season 2, you almost need to pace it, and you almost need to put Sutek here, and then
Or Anubis and Anubis, yeah.
I'm sorry, Anubis here, and end it with Anubis
That's true.
Sutek.
That's true.
So it might
I
work
could be
if
eating
they
my
go that
words by
direction.
the time
Yeah.
this is all said and done. So,
Anything else about this story arc that we need to talk about before we close it out?
I don't think so.
I'm enjoying the work Titan's putting in. I hope they keep it up.
I
Yeah.
agree. All right. Well, be sure to visit our webpage. On that webpage, you can find a link to Patreon. And on Patreon, you can click on that button and support us. And any amount that you want to donate to us is helpful. If you can't, we understand. If you can, it's greatly appreciated. And you can also click on any of those side links there. Portions of the proceeds of things that you buy from the links on our website also go into this podcast. Sean, what we got coming up on the schedule?
Coming up on the schedule this week for Friday Night Who, we've got The Long Game with Christopher Eccleston. So back to the new Whoverse. If you are in the area, you can see us at Slash and Bashed, because Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. They were supposed to get me a copy of the schedule of what was actually going to be shown at this year's fest. Haven't received it as of yet, so hopefully it'll show up on our website shortly. But please come out and see us if you're in the area. If you are in Wichita next week, you can see us at Time Eddy.
Please come out to Time Eddy.
Please.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Well, the following week is what I meant to say, yes. In 2 weeks. Please come out to Time Eddy. Wichita's, Kansas's own Doctor Who convention, Time Eddy 2, their second year. Peter Davidson,
Annika
Wills, Caitlin Blackwood.
Boris Hussein.
Yes, that was the one I was trying to think of. I cannot latch on to Warwick's for some reason. So some big guests there from the world of Doctor Who, and us. You're going to get to see us a lot. So coming out, it's also an opportunity for you to come and try out the Traveling the Vortex quiz show, the great Traveling the Vortex quiz show. And for in celebration of the fact that we're going to see Peter Davison, we're doing the 5 Doctors that week. So for Friday Night Who. And then, a little surprise for you. I'm going to let this slip, even though it's early for the schedule. The following week, this will be October 21st for Friday Night Who. We're going to do The Caretaker with Peter Capaldi, in preparation of a companion archive that we're going to do on the show that week. We're going to have some fun reviews, but not necessarily what you were thinking. It's not it is a true companion, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't accompany you on any adventures. You go to it. We're going to talk about Coal Hill School, and we're going to review the premiere of Class, the new Doctor Who spinoff, which will be debuting that week. And then we've also got a comic, The Monsters of Coal Hill School, and this appeared in the
Doctor Who Annual 2014.
Last year's, it's 2014 or 2015?
2014. Came out last year.
Came out last year, so it's a 2014 annual from 2015. That's confusing. And then a short story, Nothing at the End of the Lane, which also featured...
Oh, sorry. I had that backwards. Came out in 2014. It's the annual 2015.
Right, that makes more sense.
Yeah, they always come out before, not after. Yeah.
Like a new car.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll talk about Coal Hill School that week, and then more things will pop up on the schedule as we get them finalized. So enjoy and look forward to that.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.